Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome back. Joining me now are Margaret Howell and Leanne McAdoo to take a look at the latest WikiLeaks releases. Now, it was just yesterday we had the third batch. Today, starting about 7:30 this morning, WikiLeaks released another 1,193 emails, and this brings the total of about 6,500 emails out of approximately 50,000. So they're coming at a very quick pace now, but it has to do that because we're still only about 10% of what he says he has.
26 days out, and we're seeing how much we're having to struggle to get the media to even give this 15 minutes of time.
Which is, I wish he had started this process earlier, but I believed last week when he said he was going to release these emails, I really did believe he's going to release them in his own time. And now it is starting to come out fairly quickly. And it's difficult even now for the press to go through and to vet all of the stuff that's coming out so quickly. Because again, today it was another 1,200 emails that came out.
Well, not only that, but what we're understanding because of these, David, they want us compliant and dumb. They don't want us to question anything. Saudi Arabia is supporting terrorism. Oh, that's a shocker. They're also Clinton Foundation donors, and a trove of things that were very speculative. They're now being confirmed. And it's remarkable that yet the mainstream media isn't even putting this front and center because this is of critical importance to any voter 26 days out. And the fact that they want us compliant and dumb is a big deal. I know Alex talked about that yesterday. And then today we're seeing a realization that, oh yeah, by the way, they also try to infiltrate religious organizations like the Catholic Church. They want this progressive revolution. They want to see the deterioration of faith in this country. And it's remarkable that we're, aside from Reddit and other sources, we're the only ones talking about this.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what's developing is we're seeing the real difference between the private and the public face of Hillary Clinton and the media as well. And let's talk about this in terms of some categories, because what we've got, you mentioned some of the issues out there. We've got really several different broad categories. We've got the collusion of the media that we can see in these emails. We've got government collusion between the Clinton campaign, between the Obama administration, the Department of Justice, the State Department, so forth and so on. Then we have the calculated lies and the conspiracy plans in terms of things like the takedown of the Catholic Spring, as they're calling it, attacking Catholics. And then we see how she is the bankster's friend, coming out and talking about how she shares their goal, their ambition, their dream of a one world government, beginning with a hemispheric North American Union. She doesn't use the term North American Union, but she defines it in every aspect. Let's look at the first category here, media collusion. Now, we've seen all of these different media outlets that are not only sending her questions before a town hall, the exact question they had.
Like verbatim.
Verbatim, the exact question, so she could prepare focus group, create responses to that and test that with her focus groups to come back and say, well, this is what I think about the death penalty. That was one example. Then giving them giving her editorial control over the interviews, which quotes will be included and so forth. Many other things.
Well, yes, and something else that I thought was pretty interesting was how we're always seeing how she's giving these interviews. A few days after her collapse, she came out, but she wasn't on camera, and it was a telephone interview, and she just sounds so lovely and nice. Chris Hayes, actually, here we find out that he, in this pre-taped interview, he had sent out a question, and so she's reading off of a script. That's why she does these telephone interviews without a camera present, because she's got the question right there and she's reading off a script. And we also know from these WikiLeaks that Chris Hayes is one of her surrogate there in the media. So he's very friendly to her.
Yeah, even to the extent that they say, can we survive not answering questions from the press? And she went she went about 80% of through the campaign not having a single press conference. So now she supposedly is having press conferences, if you can call these press conferences.
Right.
They are press releases. They're PR events, that with collusion, as we see between the mainstream media and with Hillary Clinton. That's the other part of what we see here. So first of all, they shut down anybody who's going to ask any real questions, and then they work very tightly with these different organizations, the New York Times, the Boston Globe. How are we going to increase her presence? The Washington Post bureau chief, protected Podesta. We have all these different things now that are coming out of the.
Well, yes, we even have now Louise Mensch, who's a longtime conservative, on the far right. She's even giving us scripted. I'd really love to see Hillary Clinton put out this type of an ad and kind of scripts it all for her. Yeah. And I mean, it's like on all sides.
So then we look at the government collusion. We know that the media is in her pocket, but look at the government collusion. These are some of the headlines that have come out just in the last couple of days off of just the top of the Drudge Report. This isn't even digging down deep into all of the emails. The Clinton camp appeared to have contacts with the Department of Justice on the email case. At the same time, the State Department is coordinating the email release with the Clinton campaign. And then we see the White House says, oh, no, there wasn't any collusion between us,
Right.
okay? And yet we see that the media staffers are discussing which ones are going to release and which ones are going to delete. How do they get the power to do that if there's no collusion with the Justice Department?
Right.
We see that they had immunity deals with Cheryl Mills and others. They had to give them immunity before they would agree to turn over their laptops. They knew that it had incriminating information there. They demanded that they get immunity deals, and that the government doesn't ever do that with anybody else. They just come in and take what they know has criminal information on it. They've done that with whistleblowers. They've done that with former CIA director. But with Hillary Clinton, it's a different set of rules.
Right.
Not only did they give Cheryl Mills criminal immunity, they also gave the two techies that set up Hillary Clinton's email server criminal immunity as well in an unprecedented way. And they said any FBI agent looking at this case, if you talk about it publicly, you will be censored. You could possibly lose your pensions over this. I mean, it was like they were protecting her and not even the agents examining the case. It was very unprecedented, David.
Well, when you look at the way they do the immunity, always in the past, they would give immunity to the people who are lower down, like the tech people you just mentioned. They would do that so they could get the people higher up. They would keep rolling them up. They didn't do that this time, and they didn't do that 20 years ago with Charlie Tree and the issues with campaign money laundering for the Clintons. They gave him immunity, and then they didn't prosecute him or anybody else. They got the information. They knew that it was crooked. They knew it was money laundering, but nobody went to jail. And the same thing is happening here. They give them immunity so that nobody goes to jail, but they don't use it to get convictions against anyone.
Right. And what we are seeing, thanks to these WikiLeaks, is just how corrupt, how rigged the entire system is. It's a rigged reality. But they are painting it as if we can't look at what is inside of the hack, what information is being revealed. We just have to be scared because it's the Russians and they've hacked in, and how dare they get this information. Wasn't it just a few years ago they were all convincing us, well, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, shouldn't be worried about
See something, say
snooping in your
something.
email.
Right.
Unless you have something that's criminally, that makes us liable, then of course we will prosecute. I think it's hilarious that Julian Assange has come out the criminal in this. And I was looking at the Twitter war that was happening in between WikiLeaks and the Clinton camp this morning, and this Brian Fallon, who's responsible for representing the Clinton campaign, he says the media needs to stop treating WikiLeaks like the same as if it's a FOIA request. So FOIA would be the legal channel, the Freedom of Information Act channel to go through. Assange is colluding with the Russian government to help Trump. Oh, really?
Yeah, let's look at the evidence that they have for that.
No evidence.
This is Homeland Security and the Director of National Intelligence. And here's what they say. This is why they say it's the Russians. They say, well, we believe, why? Based on the scope and sensitivity of the efforts, that only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized these activities. It's consistent with the methods and the motivations of Russians. In other words, the Russians would like to see this information out there. Therefore, the Russians did it.
Right.
They don't know. And yet we see at the same time, we see Obama and Hillary saying, we're going to go to war against anybody that hacks our information. And you see Obama putting this threat out there, physical threats, threats of sanctions, threats of war to the Russians based on the fact that, well, we think that you have a motivation to do this. Why? Because the Clintons and the Obamas started the Cold War, restarted the Cold War. That's why they say they've got the motivation to do this.
Right. Well, and it's very interesting how even Donna Brazile is tied up in this. She was obviously the one that forwarded along that town hall question to Hillary Clinton. She says she's choosing not to view any of the emails because they were hacked. She's going to take the moral high ground and not
See
look
no
at any
evil,
of
hear
these.
no evil, speak no evil.
And she says this is exactly what the Russians intended to do, and they're doing it. And I think that's really key because we have a lot of these never Trumpers that are totally okay with blaming it on the Russians with no evidence because it's their candidate that they want to protect. But this isn't going to end with this election cycle.
Even you mentioned the Cold War, David. Even Gorbachev himself, who has basically been a recluse all these years, he's saying, look, there's a dangerous line. We covered this morning in Odd Topic. This is a very dangerous line you're crossing. It's very reminiscent of a few decades ago. I'm paraphrasing what he said. If you have a Cold War figure coming out and saying, look, you're at that line again, we might not want to cross this. We're in dangerous water here.
Yeah, he said the most dangerous thing is that we're not talking. And yet, what has Donald Trump been criticized the most for? The fact that he would talk to Vladimir Putin. Well, that's all the time we have tonight. Thank you for joining us. Join us again tomorrow night for the Infowars Nightly News, 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.